Good morning, Math 6 students and any pre-algebra students who happen to venture over to this. Just want to show you a couple things using Khan on how to divide when you have a decimal in your dividend. So I'm going to use the scratch pad. I typically don't do this, but I'll just do it for today. So if I have 7 and, let's see, that'd be 7 and 10s, 100,000, 7 and 8 thousandths divided by 8. So I'm going to divide this number into 8 equal parts. How would I go about doing this? Well, a couple things I like to do when I'm using my little division algorithm here. I like to put a multiplication symbol here. Now, I tend to use the dot from now on, so when we get into pre-algebra next unit, we don't get confused with the dot and the variable x. I'm then going to transfer the decimal up into my quotient. And I know for a fact that 8 does not go into 7, so I'll put a 0 there. Now I ask myself, how many times does 8 go into 7d? Now, if I know my multiples of 8, I know, let's see here, 8 times 5 gives me 40. That's too small. Let's try 8 times 7 gives me 56. So I'm getting closer. 8 times 8 gives me 64. Oh, that's nice. Let's go 8 times 9 gives me 72. That's too big. So I'm going to go 8 times 8. I go 8 times 8 is 64. I subtract. 70 minus 64, that gives me 6. I bring down my next digit, which is a 0. How many times does 8 go into 60, or 8 times what gives me 60? Well, I can look at my multiples here of 8. Let's see, what factor times 8 gives me close to 60? A product 60. 8 times 7, so I'll put the 7 here. That gives me 56. I subtract. That gives me 60 minus 56, that's 4. I bring down the 8. 8 times what gives me 48? 8 times 6, because I have that. Oh, I don't have that. But 8 times 6, let me just double check that. 8 times 6 is 48. I subtract, that's 0. So if I go here, plug in my answer, I have 876 thousandths, 10/100. Yep. Check my answer. Hey, I'm smart. All right, let's try the next one. Okay, once again, I'm going to put my little multiplication symbol here. I see there's a decimal in my dividend, so I'm going to transfer that up into my quotient right away. And I just ask myself, 4 times what gives me 3? Nothing. 4 times what gives me 38? Well, I don't know, so I'm going to kind of do the same thing. I'll list some multiples of 4. Well, let's see here. 4 times 7 gives me 28. That looks close, but let's try another one. 4 times 8 will give me 32. That's pretty close. Let's try another one. 4 times 9 gives me 36. Now I can't go 4 times 10 because I can't put 2 digits here. I can only put a single digit, so I'm going to have to go with 9 then. 4 times 9 is 36. I bring it down here. I subtract. Now my remainder is 2. I know that works because you always want your remainder, when you subtract your product here, from this number up here, from this whole number up here, must be less than the divisor, and that looks good so far. All right, I bring down my 9. 4 times what gives me close to 29? Well, I can go over my other work here, and that gives me 4 times 7. 4 times 7 is 28. I subtract. I have 1 left over. Again, this looks good so far because my remainder is less than my divisor. I'll bring down the 6 from the dividend. 4 times what gives me 16? 4 times 4. 4 times 4 is 16. Now, if I look at my answer, it's 9 and 74 hundredths. So 9 and 74 hundredths. Hey, all right. Let's try another one. Okay. First thing here, I'm going to put my little multiplication symbol because whatever 8 times whatever is going to give me some product that's going to work with my dividend here. Transfer that decimal up into my quotient straight up. Let's see here. 8 times what gives me 5? 8 times nothing. 8 times what gives me 56? Well, let's see here. 8 times 8, well, that's 64. That's too big. 8 times 7, well, that's 56 exactly. Hey, all right. So I'll put my 7 here. 8 times 7 is 56. I subtract. That's a 0. So there's nothing left over. I know that works because 0 is smaller or less than my divisor. Bring down the 7 from my dividend. 8 times anything give me 7? No, 8 times nothing will give me 7. Bring down the 2. Okay, 8 times what gives me 72? Well, again, I can only use 1 digit. I know that 10 times 8 will give me 80. Well, I can't put a 10 up here, and besides that, that's too large. So let's try one less. So let's try 8 times 9. 8 times 9, that's actually just 8 less than this. That's 72. Hey, that works out exactly. I subtract that 72, I have nothing left over. So I go here and put my answer in. That is 7 and 9. Ooh, yep, 9/100. Check. Hey, that works. All right, I want to jump to another skill. Oh, actually, before I do that, let's look at this one. It's a little different. I now have a two-digit divisor. Okay, I'm going to put a decimal here. I should put my multiplication symbol there. I'm going to put my decimal in my quotient. Okay, 13 does not go into 1. So I'll put a 0. 13 times nothing will give me 12. I'll put a 0 there. Okay, 13 times what gives me 9. Now, I like what Mrs. Schaefer told me the other day. She said, you know what I do, Mr. Giomini, is I look at 12, and I ask myself, what times this first digit, 1, will give me close to 12? Well, I know 10, because 10 times 1 gives me 10, but I can't put a 10 here. So she said, you know, I'm going to try a 9, but now remember, I'm going to multiply that 13 by the 9. So let's try this here. 13 times 9. Let's see what that gives me. It can't give me over 129, hopefully. 9 times 3 is 27. 9 times 1 is 9 plus 2. That gives me 11. Hey, that's less than 129, but pretty close. So I'm going to try that 9 here. And let me just double check my math. 9 times 3 is 27. Put my 2 up here. 9 times 1 is 9 plus 2 tens gives me, okay, good. So I'm going to put 117 here. I'm going to subtract. 9 minus 7 is 2. 2 minus 1 is 1. Okay, my remainder is less than my divisor, so that's good. I'll bring down the next digit, which is a 2. Okay, well, it's 122. I know that 13 times 9 gives me 117. I can't get any higher than that, so I got to put that 9 there again. That once again gives me 117. I subtract. This becomes 122 minus 117. Well, 17 is 3 away from 20, and that's 2 away from 22. So that's 3 plus 2. That's 5. And then I'll bring down the next digit, which is a 2. Okay, so, well, first of all, the remainder was 5, which is less than my divisor of 13. So that's good. So I brought that 2 down from the dividend. Okay, so let's see here. What times 13 gives me 52? Well, that's way too big. I take a look here. I'm going to multiply something times 13 to hopefully get 52. What times 3 gives me a 2 in the ones place? 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 4 is 12. So I'm going to try a 4 here. 4 times 3 is 12. Group my 110. 4 times 1 is 4 plus 1. Hey, look at that. It gives me exactly 52. I'll put my 4 up there. 4 times 13 is 52. I subtract. That is 0. There's nothing left over. So 12 and 922, 922, what is that, tenths, hundredths, thousandths divided by 13. So if I break this number up into 13 equal parts, there's a little less than 1 in each part, or 994 thousandths. So I always like to put the 0 first to hold that place value, the ones place. 994 thousandths. Let's take a look. All right, I'm going to stop for there. All right, hope this helps you out with dividing decimals, especially when you have that decimal primarily in your dividend. When it's in your divisor, it's a little different, but we'll get to that later. Take care.